Okay, starting a new video.
Can't do it by pretending something's not happening.
Isn't it remarkable that we still have to dredge to get water to the coast?
It's remarkable and stupefyingly horrible, in my opinion, because a river system dies from the mouth upward, although in the case of the Darling, it's dying at Menindee Lakes. But yes, when you have to dredge the Murray Mouth, and we've been doing so for years, it indicates a range of factors. There's not one factor, but a range of factors. But it certainly indicates the most important factor is we're not getting adequate flows in the system down at the mouth. And we're not getting adequate flows at the mouth is because we're extracting too much water for irrigation. So we need to get the balance right. And that's what water reform was about. What we tried to do in 2004 with the National Water Initiative, the National Plan for Water Security in 2007. Indeed, the Basin Plan, we had a guide in 2010 that actually suggested much larger numbers than what we currently have. And then even the Basin Plan, we tried to move that in the right direction, but each time we get pushed back by interests who want to change the what we've agreed to so it can financially benefit themselves and at the cost of others. So let's be clear, there's a very real cost here. One of the things that's often said is, oh, we've got to do it for the basin communities. Well, Philip, you live in a basin community. I happen to live in a basin community, and a lot of those people in those basin communities have received $0 from the federal government for those water infrastructure projects for irrigation. Yet they get a lot of benefit from a well-functioning environment, ecosystem, and basin and river system. So they're the losers, and the losers are the people who are not having the quality water even any water. And that's a terrible tragedy, not just for the Murray Mouth and for the fish and the birds, but it's a tragedy for people as well.
Royal Commission. We know what they're going to say, do we not already?
Well, I haven't seen the report, but certainly the senior counsel advising the Murray-Darling Basin Royal Commission, and that's a Royal Commission in South Australia. It's not a federal or parliamentary Royal Commission. The senior counsel has made it very clear what he thinks has been happening. I could even quote you if you wanted me to quote, but the bottom line in a paraphrase way is to say that there's been the whole basin reform process post-2012, after the Basin Plan was enacted, has been marred by maladministration and mismanagement. Indeed, by the so-called independent authority, the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. He sticks his finger right at them as one of several culprits in terms of failing to deliver good water management that we need.
I've got some bad news here. Some fellow called Shorten has called on the Academy of Science, of all people, to prepare a report on the causes of the fish kill. Outrageous.
Terribly outrageous, yes. So just to make sure, full disclosure here, I am actually one of the members of that panel from the Academy of Social Sciences. So yes, there's a 13-person panel, I believe, and that panel will report very soon. February 10th, I believe, is the date that the leader of the opposition has requested, and we'll do our very best to provide the facts and evidence that's needed to find out what has happened, not just the immediate cause, as you are highlighted in the first question, but it's not just the immediate cause, is what's led up to this terrible event.
Okay, before I let you slap back into your vacation, make the most important recommendation to us on the program. What should we do?
Lots of things, but the most important thing is do a full, comprehensive water audit of where the water is, who's using the water, how's that being used, not just for this year in 2019 and 2018, but over the last few years. Because unless we do that, we're not going to be able to get the answers of what we need to do in terms of how we get better water resource plans, water quality. So it's shocking today, in 2019, we've got remote sensing, we've got billions of dollars that have been spent, but we still haven't done a basic cost-benefit analysis of a lot of this infrastructure. We still don't know what's happening to return flows. We still don't even know some basic information on flows. So that would be the first thing, an absolute first thing. Start with evidence, use that, and then we can start to make the solutions really work.
Quentin, your show promise, I think we'll keep you on. Quentin Grafton, Professor of the Crawford School of Public Policy at the ANU and Director of the Centre for Water Economics, Environment and Policy, breaking his holiday to talk to us about this crisis. Coming up, another crisis. What is happening between New Zealand and China?
Yeah, well, 1.5 videos in, we'll let New Zealand and the Chinese have their little argumentation over the kiwi fruit and the Chinese gooseberry, I guess. Okay, YouTubers, those of you who care, those of you who are interested, those of you who are curious, if you've been paying attention to my channel, you will have noticed that over the past couple of weeks, I've made a few videos regarding the Barnaby Joyce heatwave drought. The Barnaby Joyce darling fish kill drought. And I've crunched so many numbers that I can kind of sort of call them up to mind, and I can say with a level of authority that if you compare the 2007 drought, which was mentioned in the radio broadcast, during the millennial drought, within which everybody thought our throats was cut, right here at 30 degrees south, 151 degrees east of the Greenwich Meridian, right here on the Endangered Species Sanctuary. In 2007, I missed out on 74 millimetres of my expected annual average rain, 8.9%. And everybody thought that their throats was cut because we're all berooned, said Hanrahan, because things is crook in Tullarook. And you know what happened? In 2007, right here, the minimum temperature was 10 degrees, the average minimum was 13.2, the average maximum was 22.7. The highest temperature was 28. We had one day where the highest minimum was 17 degrees. We had one day where the highest maximum was 28 degrees. That was the millennial drought in 2007, back when Tony Windsor was my Member of Parliament in the federal electorate of New England, and when we were electing him to go and fix the Murray-Darling Basin, Okay. Barnaby Joyce became the Minister for Water and the Agriculture and Water and Resources and Agriculture, as well as the Deputy Prime Minister. And one of the things that he did was he changed the paradigm. You see, before the Barnaby came to be the New England Minister for Agriculture, all of the cotton irrigators and all of the other irrigators, what they used to say is, oh, we don't harm the environment because what we do is we dig great big holes in the ground and we call them off-stream storage tanks. And then we wait till there's a flood. And when there's a flood and when the river is in danger of overflowing its banks, that's when we pump with great big diesel-powered pumps and we fill our off-stream storage tanks in periods of high flow, aka floods. And then we cultivate crops and we irrigate the crops from our off-stream storage tanks, and thus we do not interfere at all whatsoever with the environment, because the environmental allocations all come out of the medium flow and low flow periods. Right, well, Barney Baby Joyce, my local member, became the Minister for Agriculture, spelt with a double G and a K, and for Water Resources. And what he decided under his regime, bugger the Murray-Darling Basin Commission, bugger the Murray-Darling Basin Command, bugger the Murray-Darling Basin allocations, what he said was that all of his mates in the irrigation industry in southeast Queensland near St George, where he went to establish his accountancy practice when he first left university, what they could do was they could take their entire allocation from the river during periods of low and medium flow, because that's when the plants need to be watered, you see, when it doesn't rain. because they wanted to grow such a huge crop that they couldn't dig a big enough hole to fill with enough water to store it during periods of high flow, because the rainfall's been kind of dropping up there. And therefore, thus and because, after the millennial drought finished, Barnaby Joyce made sure that the only time the environment got any flow was during periods of flood. And then when the rain sort of kind of petered out, the further he got into his reign, shall we say, R-E-I-G-N, as the water level in the river dropped off, Barnaby's mates sucked the very last water out of the river. That's why the Menindee Lakes have been emptied twice in the last 2 years. And therefore, thus and because, we have all of them fish dead in the Barnaby Joyce Darling fish kill. But it wasn't only the Darling. We've had fish dying at Port Macquarie on the eastern coast. We've had fish dying in the Hume Reservoir down on the bloody Victorian border. We've had fish dying at Burrendong near Dubbo. We've had fish dying all over the bloody state, because Barnaby Joyce's policy at a national level enabled the irrigators to suck the last water out of the river just before the bloody drought hit. And while we're talking about the hitness of the drought, in Barnaby Joyce's December 2018 versus Tony Windsor's December 2007, yes, the minimum temperature for the month stayed at 10 degrees overnight. The average minimum jumped from 13.2 to 14.2, which is 1 full degree, which is 5.8%. The average high temperature jumped from 22.5 to 27.5, which is 5 degrees, which is 22%. The average temperature for the whole month went up by 1 degree plus 5 degrees divided by 2 degrees is 3 degrees for the entire month of December, only 11 years apart, both of them during the drought. So we've apparently suffered 3 degrees of anthropogenic global warming right here in Barney Baby Joyce's electorate. And Barney Baby Joyce's drought, compared to Tony Windsor's drought, it's 14.75% hotter. Barney Baby Joyce's drought, compared to Tony Windsor's drought, is 385% drier, because in Tony Windsor's drought, we only missed out on 8.9% of our expected average rainfall for the year. In Barney Baby Joyce's drought, we missed out on 280 millimetres, which is 34.5%, and 8.9 goes into 34.5, 3.85 times. So yeah, Barney Baby Joyce's drought, 385% drier under the National Party, 14.75% hotter under the National Party, because the National Party has advocated the digging, the extraction, the burning, the export, and the eventual burning of ever more fossil fuels the whole bloody time that Barney Baby Joyce has been my local Member of Parliament. Australia has done the opposite of address the issue of anthropogenic global warming. Australia has become the global planetary scumbag in terms of anthropogenic global warming. And not only, but also, we have killed the inland rivers as well by sucking them dry and turning the fish into sewage. At Menindee, a week, maybe a fortnight ago, the people were complaining that the water coming out of their taps was brown, cloudy, and stinking of sewage, because they were having to drink filtered fish kill juice supplied to them by Essential Water, a sibling company of Essential Energy. And what do you know? There you go. And now you know we're on the upload limit. Warble's on a lot to YouTube. That's why the fish have been dying, because Barney Baby Joyce is an arsehole. Such is life. Ciao. Arr.